So the hottest thing in town today, AI is a big thing. So what's your advice about somebody who heard a lot about AI but has not experimented and tried?
It's a great question because I think it's a question everyone's trying to solve is where does AI really play in? It comes down to every other business decision, which is ROI. ChatGPT first hit, for example, there was a lot of buzz around it, but no one really knew how to put it into practice to really get that value return. And at the end of the day, that's what we do in IT, whether it's through AI, whether it's through another tool, we get to help people solve their problems. We get to make their days better, and that allows them to produce what they need to for their day job, right? I think my general advice around AI is it's not going to go away. It's not a fad. It's here to stay. So you can either embrace it and understand how to leverage it to make your business more successful. You go in with a calculated risk, you want to understand, but you have to take some risk if you're going to continue to progress. And so I think the people that are really going to be able to leverage, the next generation are going to be the ones that are able to understand AI now, but you want to be on the forefront of that.
Hey Josh, welcome to the special episode of Atomic Conversations. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Hey folks, so Josh has a very interesting career in IT. He studied PhD and got into IT. And unlike most IT people, his title itself, caught my attention as Director of Technology Experience. Josh, we would love to know a bit about you, your career, and what got you into IT.
Yeah, well, it's a funny story. So I've been in IT roughly 23 years now, and I actually got into IT by chance, to be honest. I joined the Marine Corps open contract, so that means they picked my job for me. I thought they'd hand me a rifle, but they handed me a computer. And 20 some odd years later, I'm still going at it. So I've spent a good amount of time in the private and the public sector, but it's been a fun ride.
No, that's awesome. So why did you pick like this technology experience role, right? So most of us basically say, hey, we are VP of technology. In end of the day, experience is what matters, right? Both for your business and your end users, right? And most of us in IT, as much as we are focused on our customers, there are like this internal customers, right? And so what's this backstory behind, this technology experience role?
Yeah. So, I think all IT providers are in the experience management business, whether they call it that or not. For the last, probably since IT started, but I can guarantee for the last 23 years, we've all been involved in experience management. Really, all we did was kind of take a more concrete approach towards it. So when we started to look at how do we really take our team to the next level, experience is what stood out. There were a lot of things that we felt we could get insights from around some of those key tenets of experience management, around personas and journeys, and really looking for the opportunities. We were doing a lot of that, but it wasn't as formalized. So when we saw the benefits we could get from it, we kind of dove in feet first, and that's where the technology experience came from.
Amazing. And I know you studied PhD. So what was the story around, doing PhD?
Yeah, so I have my doctorate in business administration. And it's funny, all of my degrees are actually in business. So I learned IT from the Marine Corps, and then my education is all around business. But I always had a passion for business as a young man, and it carried throughout all the years. It's funny, I'm actually lucky enough to have 6 kids, right? And so every time I had a new kid, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go get another degree. Just trying to advance my career and provide more for them. So I started off with my associates, got my bachelor's, master's, and all the way to my doctorate. Thankfully, I had the GI Bill, and I was smart enough to take advantage of some of the benefits while I was in. So I was able to almost cover all of that education through my time in the military, which is great.
Incredible. So I think I met like a lot of IT people, and I think there are very few I met who did PhD. So it's really interesting that you have this growth mindset of constantly learning and trying to evolve. So the hottest thing in town today, we are at Pink. AI is a big thing.
Yep.
And tell me like how you folks are looking at AI, at Power Designing.
Yeah, it's a great question because I think it's a question everyone's trying to solve is where does AI really play in? And so for us, it comes down to every other business decision, which is ROI, right? When ChatGPT first hit, for example, there was a lot of buzz around it, but no one really knew how to put it into practice to really get that value return. I think we've come a long way in that arena. And so one of the things we look at with Power Design with our AI strategy is, do we get the value out of this? And it's not necessarily just a cool buzz item, right?
Yeah. That makes sense. I think a lot of us started experimenting with AI in 2023 and 2024. But that promise to value is very important, if you're in business. So I'm glad, you guys actually took, what's the value for the business
Right.
approach. So what's your advice for young people who want to get into IT? Because you've been around for like 2+ decades.
Yes, yeah.
And had a very interesting career, both private and public. So what's your advice?
I think honestly, just do what excites you. I didn't plan to get into IT, but I've stayed in it for a very long time because it really is one of those fields that's ever changing. And there's always a new challenge. But I think what's really kept me engaged, because again, following your passion, I think is key, is getting to help people. And at the end of the day, that's what we do in IT, whether it's through AI, whether it's through another tool, or just the service we provide. We get to help people solve their problems. We get to make their days better, and that allows them to produce what they need to for their day job, right? And so I think the reward I get from that is what keeps me engaged. So for young people getting into this, I would say just figure out what you're passionate about and pursue that.
Yeah, amazing. That's such a timeless advice that figure out what your passion is and then pursue it. With both patience and perseverance,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So, like, there are a lot of IT leaders, right, who are very skeptical about even like trying AI,
Yeah.
right? So, what's your advice about somebody who heard a lot about AI but has not experimented and tried? So, what do you suggest? Because from our earlier conversation, you are basically mentioning that you guys have been trying to use AI to deliver business value, and for last almost 5 years,
Yeah.
right, since you started
Yeah,
on that journey. So, would love to hear your inputs and advice for other IT leaders who are thinking, hey, how do I go about adopting AI in their organization?
Yeah. So a couple of things. Obviously, we talked about the value add, but I think my general advice around AI and whether you're going to dive into it or not is it's not going to go away. It's kind of like when the internet first came out. It's not a fad. It's here to stay. So you can either embrace it and understand how to leverage it to make your business more successful, or unfortunately, you can get left behind. And we've seen time and time again companies who can't pivot. Many years ago, before I started IT, I actually worked for Blockbuster, and I
Okay.
hate to call them out, but they were the top of the top for a very long time, and they did not keep up with the trends that were happening with either streaming video or even the kiosks. They eventually tried to jump on the bandwagon, but they jumped on it far too late. And I think if you really want to be a transformative force in the market, you've got to embrace these new technologies. You go in with a calculated risk. You want to understand. You don't want to put your entire operation at risk, but you have to take some risk if you're going to continue to progress. And so I think that's one of my biggest pieces of advice is a lot of people are kind of standing back and saying, okay, what are we going to do with this? Let's see if everyone else and what they do with it. I think the people that are really going to be able to leverage, the next generation are going to be the ones that are able to understand AI now.
Yeah.
And they can still learn as other people go through it too.
Yeah.
But you want to be on the forefront of that.
No, absolutely. So you had like a great career, across different industries and working both for the government and private sector. What's the best career advice you got?
Yeah. That's a very good question. I mean, I already used the passion, so that's a great one. But here's what I'll tell you actually, and this is something I tell anyone that is struggling with their career. Sometimes you find yourself in a situation that you're not happy with.
Mhm.
It's important, I think, not to just leave a situation. You need to intentionally go somewhere. So if you find yourself in a spot in your career that you're not fulfilled, you're not happy,
Yeah.
or you're missing something, don't just leave it to get out of that situation. Figure out what you're looking for, figure out what you want, and then go towards that. So don't leave a situation, but go to a new one.
No, amazing. I think the ability to figure out and just handle things head on is great way to actually look at things. So, what's the most exciting thing that you're working on in 2025?
Whew. I mean, there's so many different things that we're trying to do, but I would say probably the most exciting thing for me right now is this ESM concept that we're bringing in. So obviously we're at Pink, one of the great ITSM conferences. So IT service management, but how do we take that even farther with enterprise service management? So we've actually been taking on services across the company beyond just the scope of technology and providing that back to the business at that same high quality, that same high speed that you would expect from an IT entity. So we've been able to leverage those skill sets and apply them holistically across the board, and very excited for that venture.
No, amazing. I think we always talk about, IT is here to support business, but the real way to deliver value to business is, go beyond IT, across the enterprise, as Josh is focused on. So we come to the last segment. This is my favorite question that I often ask very experienced leaders. IT is like one of those stressful jobs, right? Because you're always on, every alert, raises your blood pressure. So as somebody who's been in this career, for a long time, what is your advice for people, who are in IT and, getting into IT leadership roles on managing stress, expectations and family? Because IT is one job role where you're 24/7, right? You're always on, right?
No, it's a very good point, and I think my phone's been vibrating over here with alerts as you mentioned it. But no, you are always on. But I think it's important to have your priorities in line. As long as you know what's important to you in life and you make your decisions in alignment with that, you'll always be happy with the expectation or the results, right? The other thing I would say, and what I found to be very effective in that leadership capacity, is I think about my customer, but I think a lot about my employees. Right. Even when you're talking about the implementation of AI and experience management as a whole, we look at the employee journey mapping, the employee personas. How can we make their day-to-day better? Because if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers.
I think that's such a beautiful way to put it together. I think the world used to be, let's focus on shareholders, then we moved to let's focus on customers. But as Josh said, if you really focus on your employees, then they will take care of your customers and your customers will take care of your shareholders. Thank you so much, Josh, for joining us. Really appreciate, you being on Atomic Conversations podcast.
Of course, it was awesome. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you.